Holy ladies and gentlemen, Batman, it is game number 5 between I Am MVP and Slayers MMA at the GeForce SC2 Pro-Am presented by NVIDIA. Husky, whoever wins this game is into the semifinals.
Absolutely, Sean, which means they have a very high chance of making it to the finals. Now, I have to say, I know there's a lot of people out there, because I look at my views very closely, who just skipped to the last game, and I want to say on this series, you should not do that. Even if you hate TvT, go check out this series, as it is absolutely worth it. The games have been amazing. I think there's a lot to be learned here. We've seen different builds in basically every single game. It hasn't been bland, I promise. So go check it out. Anyways, spawning up in the top center, it is going to be MMA, who was down 0-2, is now tied for the first time in the series, aside from before they started playing, because you'd be tied 0-0, but is now tied, has a chance of taking this with just one game, and in the bottom center, I Am MVP has dropped the last 2 games, but his play has still been good. There hasn't been huge, one-sided games at all, he's showing us that he can absolutely take this series.
Now, we have seen players of I Am MVP's caliber have that mental collapse when they're in this sort of situation. I mean, if you're down 0-2 in MMA's position, obviously that's the worst point you can ever be, is on elimination 2 games in a row and you pull the miracle. Going into game number 3, though, if you have just tied it up, you have a lot of momentum on your side.
Yes.
MVP twice has lost the chance to close the game out with a 3 victory. So, if I'm MVP, I'm going to be kicking myself for the 2 games in a row, and if I'm MMA, I'm going to be living on a high life. But that doesn't mean MVP is going to play necessarily bad. I mean, he is MVP.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He could probably be heavily sedated with horse tranquilizer and still play quite well, Husky.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, he is one of the strongest players we've seen. Both of these players, we mentioned it before, but I got to reemphasize it. They duked it out at MLG, showing us very good games there and showing us very good games here. And this is one of those situations where the players are so evenly matched that one mistake can end up costing you the game very easily. And we haven't seen these players make huge blunders at all. So if there's any minor mistakes in this game, I feel like it's definitely going to swing into the other person's favor. Rather, we do have the factory going to be going down right now for MMA, and what is MVP doing? Is he looking to expand? It looks like he will at least be building a command center inside of his main. This is something that we've seen him do several times, Sean, and sometimes to success and sometimes to just losing a lot of SCVs to Hellions.
This is a really cool timing by MVP. What he does is he waits till a little after 15 to build his gas geyser, so this both allows him to start a pretty damn early command center. It's effectively a 1 Barrett's expand, but watch that gas. He's going to hit, ooh, interestingly, not going for the factory, going for the reactor instead, but this is a great way to get a good marine tank count started very early on. The gas a little after 15, then command center, then some sort of tech.
Now, I do want to mention that the map is Shattered Temple. They are at very far apart spawns. The reason that's important is because it always plays a huge role in what builds you end up going and how effective they can end up being. Now, we do have a starport on the way for MMA. He has not started his command center quite yet, simply because MVP looking for that early economic gain. Looks like the first casualty is going to be an SCV who just has no chance of escaping the bully Hellion, who has been pushing him around all of his life. And right now we have, look at this from MVP, he is going to be adding on those 2 barracks. And any thoughts about this, Sean?
This is a very unusual play to see a player do. I mean, what I will personally like to do at this point is to throw down 2 tech labs, get both stim, combat shield, and really begin bringing the noise. Stylistically, MVP has a tendency to get a factory right after this, go more for the quicker medevac, but indeed there are the 2 tech labs going down. There's the orbital command popping up. Banshee with cloak en route, and it looks like maximum harassment coming up for our Terran buddy MMA.
It does look like they may indeed, Sean, have to rely on Harry Potter magic just to win this next game, because it's going to be a very close one, but we haven't quite seen a Marine Marauder style like this right out of the gate. Usually both players were trying to get out some siege tanks and Hellions and things like that. Maybe reactionary play later and getting the Marine Marauder. The scan right there is going to reveal quite a bit as to what's going on. The Banshee cloak has not been canceled. It's still on the way. And is this going to get locked down, though? It's always so vital to keep this first Banshee alive if possible, because you're investing so heavily in that cloaking. And at this point, when your opponent's mostly just going for Marines, that Banshee can prove to be be so frustrating because with just a little bit of micro, it's going to outrange the Marines, but needs to be careful right here. Not flying it directly over the Marines would be a good start, but looks like he will be able to take out these Marines, and cloaking is now done.
And now it looks like a little bit of harass can occur. There's the lift. No combat shield. Those Marines will die. 2 shots and a complete miss scan by MVP. Oh, an atrocious misstep. He does not have enough energy for a scan yet. And if you're perceptive, and MMA almost certainly is, he is clicking on those command centers, keeping tabs on what that energy count is. And we see a lot of SCVs on auto repair, trying to keep them alive as best as possible. And this is going to be plenty of free kills, but even worse for MVP is the fact that he is out of position now. If those Blue Flame Hellions do begin to swing in, what defense does he have? Look, a regular old Banshee now about to fly in the front, and only 1 scan remains.
Now, Sean, this is showing us why people have kind of shied away from getting this many barracks units out, especially with no anti-air, because this kind of reminds me back of in the beta days, kind of short release after StarCraft, or shortly after the release, but Banshees are so good against Marines, especially if microed correctly. We've already seen 2 scans used, and the Banshee still did not die. So there's always an imminent threat of both bases being locked down. And you can see in the supply count, 49 to 38. You would expect someone who does the 3 racks to be able to get his supply up much more quickly. But at this point, even though MVP early expanded, his expansion timing is now delayed. And that also means that MMA is going to be able to use that energy rather than on scans, use them on the mules, keeping this Banshee alive for as long as possible. So this is so frustrating for MVP at this point. I mean, if he runs all the way across the map, he's not going to have an army by the time he gets to his opponent's base.
Absolutely. I mean, I just cannot emphasize enough how the tournament psychology is kicking in here. You're up 2-0, and now you're tied 2-2. You're going into that last game kicking yourself, thinking about the previous game's mistakes, and here we see MVP with a lot of fumbles in this game, clearly looking quite flustered, and MMA in a dominating position. I mean, we've essentially only followed Banshees for the last several minutes. It looks like finally MVP catches a break, and there's a miscloak by MMA. Meanwhile, MMA is beginning that maximum Hellion production, is still churning out the Banshee, sees how good of control he's getting, and no, you will not ever be able to get that gold expansion up, MVP.
Yeah, MVP, I mean, he has those Marauders. It should be easy for him to destroy those rocks, but when there is that many Banshees on the field, I mean, Marauders start becoming much worse. Combat Shields is now done. Stim, of course, has been done as well. But the scan, once again, this is the 3rd or 4th scan in this game where a Banshee has not died. And at this point, MVP was trying to take a risk by taking that high-yield expansion, but he is already so far behind. We're at 10 minutes in the game. May get 1 Banshee. Oh, does snipe it right there. But again, the supply counts are 45 to 77. MVP, honestly, I think he needed to kill that to even have a chance of winning this, so that will allow him to secure the high-yield expansion. But is he even going to have enough SCVs to fully saturate it? Because at this point, his army is so measly that pretty soon he's going to be going up against Ravens, Siege Tanks, and of course those Blue Flame Hellions. And continued Banshee Rise. I hear one shooting somewhere, and it's just killing off more and more Marines. MVP, we were saying a small mistake is going to cost you the game. That's exactly what we're seeing here, is MVP stumbled a little bit in the early game, and now he's having such a difficult time holding off.
MVP just in a horrendous position. But, you know, keep in mind, we have seen small Marine Marauder armies demolish meching armies before. It's a very, very thin edge you have to dance along. Finally, the command center lands. Some extra scans are gifted into the hands of MVP, and MVP actually going to go for a counter push here.
He's going to try and win it right here with a few units he has left. He is going to be able to get the barracks. Now, the Marauder's pretty good against everything that's on the field, but I feel like the numbers may be overwhelming. We could see an auto turret drop as well.
No.
It does look like the Marauders are going to get cleaned up, even though the unit composition was good. There just was not enough stuff. And at this point, the Banshees have been cleaned out. The high-yield expansion, I don't know if you can call it secured. While it is landed, there's just not a whole lot going on there. And as soon as the Hellions move out across the map, what can MVP do when it's 27 supply to 94? And that just shows you the importance of playing perfectly, especially with the early harass from those Banshees, just completely snowballed out of control. And if MVP was able to hold off those Banshees, he would have been in a decent spot, a pretty good spot actually, but the Banshees just doing exactly what they were made to do, and that is winning games.
And you know, it's kind of amazing to think how MMA barely won Game 3, barely won Game 4, epic games, and now here in Game number 5, complete and total domination by MMA. Now MVP, hey, he has 5 things collecting at this gold expansion at the 14-minute mark. We see it's 41 food to 109. The gold also being planted by MMA, going up to that factory count of 5. Also has a starport up, and look at the add-on count. Every building with an add-on, becoming increasingly difficult to do as players get better and better at this game, but not a problem. There is a scouting medevac out right now for MMA, and you know, I'm really scared to look at the workers killed tab. How many do you think have been killed off by MMA
I'm going to
this
say
game?
32. 23.
I mean, your spider sense was on.
It's really the same thing, but my spider sense just has dyslexia, so that is absolutely fine. But regardless, look at the production facilities from MMA, and look at this from MMA as well. He's throwing down missile turrets around his entire base. He is playing it so safe right now. He knows the only thing he can really lose to is perhaps an awesome Blue Flame Hellion drop, maybe some Banshee harass, and he knows that if he just continues making goods out of those barracks, or out of the factories rather, and just sets up a little defense, he's going to be in such a good spot. Yes, his opponent has a high yield expansion, but he doesn't even have his natural yet because the harassment was so effective, and we have even another command center being constructed right now for MMA. So I mean, this is looking really, really dire for MVP. Not saying it's unwinnable, because as you mentioned, Sean, the positioning of Marines and Marauders can sometimes take a Terran player by surprise versus those tanks, but that is a lot of stuff. It's going to be tough. And also, the sensor tower going to reveal everything that's going on to the center of the map, and he has a floating building on the right side to spot drops. MMA is just playing so smart. I mean, he's at double the supply, and he's still not moving out to seal the deal because he wants to make sure everything is absolutely perfect before he does so.
I mean, it's so true. Whether you barely win or very win, it's just a win at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how it came on the table. MMA maybe could have closed this game out 5 minutes ago, but he is instead going to go for the gentle advantage win and make sure that he doesn't lose his advantage. And now we see the Blue Flame Hellions trying to swing by. A little bit of a lucky break there by MVP, managing to pick off a decent number of Hellions, having a nice spread, starting to do the supply depot wall off. Only 3 barracks for MVP. He is getting those upgrades. He's trying to maintain efficiency, but I do love the high-sec auto-tracking, the turret range, and the planetary fortress range.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of Terran players like to get when they're this far ahead, because it makes your defensive posture much better. If you ever have to retreat for some reason, if you lose your army, you can fall back on those better defenses. But right now, it looks like he's going to be marching in here. These Marines are completely balled up, and if those Hellions get one volley off on that, those Marines are going to die immediately. Looks like the wall-in was not complete. The high yield expansion is now getting locked down. Here it comes right now. This is going to be the final engagement. It looks like the siege tanks are now in position. It will force back these Marines and Marauders, but the expansion has already been locked down. So this is looking really, really bad for MVP. This could allow MMA to march into the semifinals. He has more than double supply now, and it looks like MVP trying to do a counterattack, but he has no medevacs to heal this army. What is he going to do right here? He realizes the only thing he can try and do is a base race scenario, but at some point he's going to have to deal with that army, Sean, and I think it's going to attempt to be right now. Look at this, chasing it down with this army. It just looks like the hourglass is running out of sand for MVP's army. The splash damage is going to completely destroy this, and MVP does not stand a chance.
Wow.
There's going to be the GG in game number 5. Wow, Sean,
pulling
MMA.
the reverse kill, was down 0-2, wins the series 3-2. That means MMA is in the semifinal of the upper bracket for the GeForce SC2 Pro-Am.
Wow. Sean,
that
means
10K first place prize.
Yeah, even if MMA doesn't advance to the finals, that means he's going to get knocked down next round, which means he still has a good chance of getting to the finals because he'll be very far placed in that lower bracket. So MMA looking to be in very good shape to potentially make it all the way to the finals, but do not count out MVP. He is someone who has shown us time and time again he can work his way through a tournament and make it to the finals. I would not be surprised to see this exact rematch in the final, Sean, just because both these players playing so well. And while MVP did have a very bad game, right? I mean, that's basically what we saw, was just completely picked apart by Banshees. He played so well in the first 2 games, and then he just slowly lost the momentum, and it was completely, I feel like he may have been crying in game number 3. But it's MVP, man. He'll come back, I promise.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of the GeForce SC2 Pro coverage by myself, Day 9, and
Husky.
So we will be off to do more casting action. Definitely check out our channels, youtube.com/day9tv.
And youtube.com/Husky StarCraft. We will see you guys. And remember, I got to say, if you're just watching this on mine or Sean's channel, there's double the games on the other channel. So if you didn't know that, then go check them out. Anyways, we will see you guys very, very soon. Me and Sean love you all, and we'll see you guys next time.